Hello and welcome to another episode of Inside the Huddle. Today is Sunday, March 15th. This is episode 100 of the Inside the Huddle podcast. Thank you as always for joining us. For those tuning in on YouTube, make sure to please like and subscribe. Big triple digits for the episode here today. 100 officially hit, and I think it's a perfect time. I don't know if we exactly planned this when we started doing this podcast, but it's perfect timing to have the 100th episode land on the week of free agency because we have got a lot to discuss. NFL free agency frenzy. We got a trade that was backed out of. So just a crazy week across the NFL as the new league year officially began, and we're on to 2026 full steam ahead. And now we kind of get set for the second wave of free agency. You start to get a clearer look at these teams' plans, get a clearer look at holes now, remaining holes going into the draft, holes that were filled, teams' draft plans. You'll start to hear a lot more rumors around the draft and potential targets. So this is kind of like a big step one in the offseason. Now you get set for the draft and you keep moving forward. We're already halfway through March. It's moving by. Like quietly here, Super Bowl's over with, Combine's done with. All that stuff over with. Free agency, for the most part, the first big wave, the first big week over with. There's still some free agents out there, still moves to be made. There's always that second wave, but lots to discuss, DiMari. How's it going, man?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. Big episode 100. And the NFL free agency week, like you said, set us up perfectly. We always talk about how dead it is during the offseason. It feels like we're scratching, for topics week after week, but not this week. This week was a banger. It started off first day of free agency. Honestly, it was just one of the best we've seen in a while. So we got a lot of topics today. A lot of news yet to come out, like you just said. Obviously, that second wave free agency will eventually start to hit. Pro days are about to start coming up. Next thing you know, we're talking about the draft. We're talking about OTAs. We're talking about all these things. So it's been a pretty fast offseason. It's been a pretty good offseason for some teams. You see what your teams did, and you're just like, well, some fans, you see what your team did, you're like, oh, can't wait to see them take the field. And then for other fan bases like me and you, doesn't matter what they do, we don't want to see them back on the field in September. But, hey, football is football. Teams made moves, and as much as we probably won't admit it, we're kind of excited to see our teams come September time with all the stress with it. But let's get into it.
Yeah, 100%. I think there's always that sense of excitement, that sense of kind of urgency and readiness that builds, especially when you get to the summer months for the season. And then you watch a game or two. As a Jet fan, I watch, week one, and I realize, okay, I don't want 16 more games of this. And I'm sure you probably share the same sentiment as a Cowboys fan as well. You watch a couple games and it's like, all right, I'm done for the year. We could skip ahead to March. Or skip ahead to April, I should say, because a lot of times it's tanking for draft picks at that point. So, yeah, we'll get into our own teams. We'll get into the Jets. We'll get into the Cowboys. We'll get into some free agency winners and losers. But the NFL, this is why they call it the NFL is king, because there is truly never a dull moment in this league. There's truly never a quiet part in terms of there's always something happening that's just kind of crazy. That's you don't always see. And that's exactly what happened. We'll start with the Max Crosby situation. So last week we come on here, we talk about the Max Crosby trade, Raiders dealing him to the Raiders, Raiders dealing him to the Ravens, first round picks involved. Baltimore gets their star pass rusher. The Raiders move on from, I guess if you want to call him the disgruntled pass rusher. I think the time was up in Vegas. A couple days later, you get the news that they've backed out of the trade. Ravens backed out of the trade. They pivot, go and sign Trey Hendrickson. And the reasoning behind it was supposedly Crosby failed his physical and there was health concerns there. And it's interesting that comes up because at the end of the year, you had the Crosby situation where they sidelined him with the injury. He sent the video of him playing basketball, that there really was no injury, that they were kind of doing that to soft tank, if you will. And now here we are. Injury pops up, health concerns pop up. So just the whole situation going back to the end of last year, to the trade itself, to the reason why the trade fell through is just crazy. Credit to the Ravens for the pivot. From the Raiders' perspective, they're in an interesting spot because a lot of the moves that they made, we were talking about this off air, were moves that were made to fill the hole of Max Crosby. Now, Max Crosby for now is back on the team. What are your thoughts on the situation and your thoughts on kind of what both teams have done in terms of their approach to free agency? Because from Baltimore's perspective, they go out and get Trey Hendrickson. From the Raiders' perspective, they sign guys like Nakobe Dean, sign guys like Quay Walker. I think we both agree they had a pretty solid free agency. Could have done a little bit more offensively. We'll see what they do in the draft outside of Mendoza, obviously. But just a crazy situation, no other way to slice it.
Yeah, first, you just said it. We know when the news first broke, or even in the offseason or the regular season, when he got sidelined, we both thought this was the Raiders kind of tanking. We're going to call it what it is, tanking. And then, we also think, okay, he's not hurt with the video that you brought up. But now it shows us Max Crosby actually was in the wrong. The Raiders were right this whole entire time. And the situation is just so tricky. But for the Raiders, I mean, with the moves that they made, I feel like it's a win-win. And that's the exact words I used off air. I feel like it's a win-win because, you don't get those first-round picks that you originally were going to have. But now adding Max Crosby to that defense where you got two good corners, you got two good linebackers, it brings a new aspect to the defense that they did not have last year. That defense was bad. And in that division, obviously, with the quarterback play in that division and the teams in that division, you need a very good defense. And the Raiders now do have that. And I'm right there with you. Offensively, they didn't do much. But, again, second wave can come through sometime. They need some work on the offensive side. But defensively, with keeping Max Crosby and what you brought over, this is going to be a very good defensive unit. Clint Kubiak, though, you're offensive-minded guy, so that's probably not really your forte. You need some help on the offense. And now if you're the Ravens side of it, if I'm Lamar Jackson, I mean, you do get Trey Hendrickson, but if I'm Lamar Jackson, I'm just like, man, what is going on? Max Crosby, in my opinion, was that piece that I thought probably could put the Ravens over. I don't think Trey Hendrickson is that piece. And I'm not saying Trey Hendrickson is not good. He's a very good pass rusher. If you look at some of his numbers are up there as far as the Parsons, the Crosbys, the Garretts over the course of the last few years. But something about Max Crosby just adds that different element as a pass rusher that I think they would have been better off with Crosby other than Hendrickson. But again, for Baltimore, you keep those picks. You still get a very good pass rusher who is kind of out for revenge. He gets to play his former team 2 times a year. So for Hendrickson and for the Ravens, as much as, having Crosby would have been the better fit, I think what they landed and what they kept still is a win in some sort in their book.
Yeah, considering the situation too, it's not like they went from Crosby to signing some middle tier pass rusher or going out and getting, let's say, like a Bradley Chubb tier, which I actually don't mind that move for the Bills, but just throwing him out there, like you would prefer a Trey Hendrickson, you would prefer one of those more, the bigger fish out there, if you will, kind of use that phrase. I will still say this, though. Talk about winners, losers, and we'll get into a lot of that today. Joe Burrow is still an incredible loser in all this, if we're being honest, right? He goes from having to face T.J. Watt, Myles Garrett, Max Crosby to now, instead of having Trey Hendrickson on his team, he's going to face Trey Hendrickson twice a year, T.J. Watt twice a year, Myles Garrett twice a year. So still no relief from a Joe Burrow standpoint. Every divisional game, it's going to be a challenge for him in Cincinnati. So there was about a 10-minute, not 10 minutes, there was about a day where Joe Burrow was slightly free again, if you will. And then Trey Hendrickson signed, and that's still enough to strike fear in the eyes of Bengals fans, especially, like you said, revenge, signing with a divisional rival. Last season, dealt with some injuries, wasn't himself, only played in 7 games. And to come back this year healthy, prove himself, and get back to, this is a guy that had back-to-back 17 and a half sack seasons in 24 and 25. When he's healthy, he is definitely one of the elite pass rushers up there. Is he to the level of Crosby and Crosby's complete play and just what he brings? No, but for a second option, for a pivot, to get a guy that had 35 sacks over 2 years, that's not a bad pivot in my book. So I still think from Baltimore's standpoint, they get a good pass rusher. They get an upgrade at the position. And from the Raiders, I know there's a lot of people that are like, oh, they're taking on Crosby's contract again. They signed all these guys. They're giving, Quay Walker and Nakobe Dean, these, 3-year contracts, all this stuff. Now they're getting Crosby back. It puts them in a tough spot. I agree with you in the sense of I don't think having Crosby back is a bad thing. Like the more pass rushers, the more juice, the more pieces on that defense, the better. We went into free agency. We talked about this last week after the Crosby trade to the Raiders looked complete. First happened, the Raiders were extremely lacking talent. When we went through the roster without Max Crosby and the names on that team from offense to defense, there was so many holes, and they filled a lot of those holes, specifically on defense. And now you get Crosby back in the mix. Quay Walker, Max Crosby, and Nakobe Dean. There's some pieces that you could really feel good about. They went out and got Teron Johnson, who, from the Bills, one of the better slot corners in the NFL over the last couple of seasons. Like, they got better defensively. They got better in the secondary. They got better from a pass rushing standpoint. They went out and brought in Kwity Paye as well from Indianapolis, more pass rushing juice. Like, to me, the Raiders, they have a lot of upside from a pass rushing standpoint. They can make life miserable for opposing quarterbacks. You add Paye in the mix. You have Crosby in the mix. You get your linebackers in Quay Walker and Nakobe Dean. You get an upgrade in the secondary in Teron Johnson. I know he's older, but this is still a guy that even as he enters his age 30 season can still play at a high level. And I know the last couple of years he's missed some time, but still a solid veteran in that secondary. They made some really nice moves. They brought back Malcolm Spence. There's some things to like if you're Vegas. Offensively, there's still some room to improve. And I guess that's just to kind of pivot a little bit to the offensive side of the football. Love the Tyler Linderbaum deal. And did they maybe overpay for him? Probably. I mean, it broke the bank. You made history with that contract. But this was the worst offensive line in the NFL last year. And you can't possibly put Fernando Mendoza behind that offensive line. So is Linderbaum going to make all of their problems disappear? No. But is he a really good center for a rookie quarterback? A center and a quarterback are a big piece to an offense having success. I like that move too. I guess your thoughts on just the Raiders offensively as well, where it feels like they could have maybe did a little bit more at receiver. And now without the extra first round pick, you kind of wonder how they'll upgrade there. Like I would have been I would have been for them in the market for a Romeo Dobbs, somebody like that. But I guess your thoughts on the rest of Vegas.
Oh, they still won't score 20 points a game. I can tell you that. That offense is not good enough. And I mean, I like Jalen Naylor. He was a very good option 3 with Minnesota during his time at Minnesota. That's not enough. That doesn't.
No. Keyword option 3.
Yeah, an option 3 is not going to be good enough because who's your option 2? Who's your option 1? Obviously, Bowers, yes, you got him there, but Bowers is going to see probably a lot of double teams, a lot of different things to take him out of the game. And you look at the rest of that Raiders offense, just the offensive weapons outside of Genty, outside of Bowers, nobody scares you. Jalen Naylor does not scare you. So for Vegas, again, you don't have the extra first round pick, but the Crosby saga probably isn't done. You probably can still trade him somewhere and get those picks back. But from here on out, that second wave of free agency and in the draft, it has to be weapons. It has to be receivers. Luckily for Vegas, Mendoza had 2 very good receivers at Indiana that are in the draft this year. So maybe bring a guy over late round that he has some experience with. But if I'm Vegas right now, and I think you mentioned it perfectly, from a defensive standpoint, you are very happy about what this team did. They can finally get some stops where stops need to be made. But offensively, you can't roll Mendoza out. You can't roll Genty out again, taking those hits like he was taking last year. It needs a massive upgrade in the second wave and the draft.
Yeah, they've got to upgrade the position. I think you look specifically in the draft where you're going to take Mendoza obviously at 1. Their next pick after Mendoza without the first rounder is 36. And in that range, I look at Elijah Sherratt potentially from Indiana, his teammate. somebody that they could potentially bring in. But even then, you're talking about a second-round receiver taking on a bigger role. I can't even say they have anybody on this team right now that has potential to be a number one. You know, it's not like they have a young guy that played well last year. I mean, Jack Besh, he's entering year 2, and I liked him come out of TCU, but he didn't do much of anything last year. Let's just call a spade a spade. He was a non-factor. Dante Thornton can be a deep threat that stretches the field a bit, but we're not talking about a future number one. Jalen Naylor is a solid 3, maybe a ceiling for a 2. Trey Tucker is definitely not a 1. You're looking at a 2 to 3. So it's ugly. There's no other way to put it. And then you've got Brock Bowers, and Brock Bowers is your number 1 pass catcher. Like, he is your number 1 receiver, if you will. But other than that, they desperately need help, and you need to have a bigger year from Genty. But it's it's not ideal, no doubt about it. So defensively, they got better one half of the football, but I feel like the path for the Raiders this season is low-scoring defensive battles. That's how they're going to win games. So craziness there. I guess we can move on now to the rest of the free agency, and we'll dive into both of our teams. Where did you want to start?
Let's start with our teams. How did you feel about what the Jets did this offseason so far?
So far, I'm okay with it. I'm okay with a lot of the moves that they have made. I think for me, what I like most about what the Jets have done is the priority that they have put on fixing the defense. Mm-hmm. That, to me, is the biggest thing. This, simply put, was not an NFL defense last season, especially down the stretch when they were getting blown out by Buffalo, blown out by Jacksonville. I mean, they were rolling guys out there. Sam Womack, Jaceel Taylor, they were rolling guys out there that should be sitting with you and I doing a podcast. That's just the fact of the matter. So they desperately need – this is where the Jets are at. And I'm not trying to say this to joke around, but it's truly the fact of where they are at. The Jets, to me, and this is how I grade their free agency, they did not have many NFL caliber football players, many good football players on their roster last year. To me, the Jets this offseason, they added good football players. And the fact of the matter is the Jets don't have many good football players. We're not talking elite. We're not talking great. We're talking about just good, competent NFL players that are good leaders in the locker room, that can play their position at a pretty high level and help this team win games. They didn't have any of that last season, especially down the stretch. Right after you deal Sauce, you deal Quinnen, you strip the defense down. It was ugly. So to me, they put a priority on rebuilding this defense, and I like that they allocated a lot of assets into this defense. I like how they went about rebuilding this defense, not just through free agency, but the trade for Minkah Fitzpatrick. They got creative with it. They also went out, traded Jermaine Johnson, brought in T'Vondre Sweat. T'Vondre Sweat is a really good nose tackle, really good run stopper in a 3-4 defense. The Jets didn't have enough run stoppers last year. They get a run stopper. So I like that approach. And now you go into the draft and you build offensively there, right? I think you still take Arvell Reese, let's say, potentially at 2, but then you're looking at the Mekhi Lemons, the Jordan Tysons at 16, right? And then you build it out the rest of that way. But, Demario Davis, I really like. He was one of my favorite Jets growing up. I love Demario Davis. They should have never let him go. That was one of the biggest mistakes the franchise ever made, was letting him go. Only the Jets can let a guy go right before he enters his prime. Only the Jets can do that. To bring him back, though, I know he's 37 years old, and there's a lot of Jet fans out there that are concerned about his age. All I can say is, first of all, watching him play, very good player. And I can't say that I watched a ton of Saints games last year, but in the game that the Saints played against the Jets, Demario Davis is all over the field. He's coming off a year where he had a career high in tackles. He was top 10 in all of the major PFF grades. Statistically, he is getting better as he ages. Like, he is aging very well. He didn't make his first Pro Bowl All-Pro team until he was 30. So he's actually getting better with age. Demario Davis, to me, hasn't lost a step. He's still playing at an incredibly high level. Is there a chance he falls off a cliff? Sure. Some guys, some guys, they just get washed right away. It's not a slow decline. It's an instant decline. But I like that move. They need more leaders in the room. I've said it so many times that CJ Mosley last year was one of the biggest absences on this team. Not having his leadership, not having him wearing the green dot on that defense was a massive blow. Demario Davis fits that role. Joseph Asai is a nice pass rushing depth. They don't have enough juice there, so they get more juice there. Kingsley Ignagbari as well. Nashawn Wright, Pro Bowler last year, 5 interceptions, forced a couple fumbles. The guy just is a turnover machine. The Jets, we all know, didn't have an interception. So Minka Fitzpatrick has been a good ball hawker throughout his career. That's something else I like. Like, they made an effort. There was a clear effort in bringing in guys that take the football away, bringing in guys that kind of have a knack and a magnet. Even Dane Belton, he's played in 66 career games. He's got 6 interceptions. So they brought in guys that have a knack for taking the football away. They brought in, Minka Fitzpatrick, good leader. Demario Davis, very good leader. So I like those moves. I liked what they've done defensively. I don't love the Andre Sisco move. I think he was awful. I don't know why they brought him back. Either way, offensively, there hasn't been much. Dylan Parham, the guard from the Raiders last season, comes in. It's okay. I don't mind it. I mean, he's been around for a bit. He's still kind of younger, still a younger player. On that entire offensive line, he was one of the better ones in what was an awful offensive line. But you bring him in as your guard, your replacement for Sips, and you let AVT walk as well. Geno Smith. Look, here's where I say with Geno Smith. Out of the available options, I don't hate it. Like, out of the available options, out of what was realistic, Kirk Cousins was not realistic. Derek Carr was not happening. Kyler Murray was not happening. I wanted nothing to do with Tua. So the realistic options for the Jets were the Carson Wentz's of the world, the Andy Daltons. Like, out of those guys, Geno was the best option. He was the best of the worst. That's the way I view it. Can he play at a competent level? I think he can. Do I think the Jets are going to win a ton of games this year? No. But can Geno play at a higher level than Justin Fields? 100%. This is a guy that had 2 over 4,000 passing yard seasons over the last couple of years in Seattle. People tend to forget what he did in Seattle and are kind of just a prisoner of a moment of what happened in Vegas. When I would argue that Vegas, a lot of issues that they had last year were around Geno Smith. Chip Kelly was a disaster. The offense line was a mess, not enough weapons, all those things. Pete Carroll was checked out. So I don't mind Geno. Of the options, I'm okay with it. And they're getting him for cheap. They swap late round picks. $3.3 million. If it doesn't work out, you easily get that money off the books for next year. So that's how I view Geno. Am I ecstatic about it? No. Do I hate it? No. Am I okay with it? Yes. Do I think the Jets are winning many games with Geno Smith? No. But I don't think the Jets are winning many games with any of these available quarterbacks because they all have their flaws. And frankly, I still have my real concerns with this coach as well. So that's how I view it.
Yeah, I agree with you. Honestly, from the defense side of it, you talk about a bad defense that was not an NFL caliber defense. There was one in Arlington, Texas that I had to watch a lot of that might be up there with defenses that did not belong on the field. But those moves let me know that Aaron Glenn is serious about upgrading. And yeah, this is not a, we have to win it all type of year. This is not a, playoffs is the goal. Division round is the goal. The moves that were made lets me know we have to win games. I think Aaron Glenn knows, and I said a little bit off air, where I think Aaron Glenn in this front office has a bit of an understanding where we're not going to be very good this year. But if we can show some promise, I mean, the bar cannot be as low as it was last year. Surely this team has to be 3 to 4 wins better this
100%
than last year. So I think for Glenn, they go out there, they win 5 games, they win 6 games. This front office sees that, and they're like, hey, we can build something from here. This is promising. We have pieces. We have Minka. We have Davis, which are, yes, guys later on in their career, a little older, but still playing very good football, like you mentioned. And from the offensive side, you go out there and you go out there and see what Geno has. And people, it's the social media side of things where people look at Geno Smith and they think this is this very bad quarterback who doesn't belong on the field. No, Geno Smith was actually very good in Seattle. Like you mentioned, the Raiders didn't give him anything, so he wasn't going to be successful. And I understand Geno had games where it looked like he played with a blindfold on. I know that's me throwing some humor in there, but it's the truth. You looked at Geno, you said, "What are you doing? What are you looking at?" But there was games where Geno lit up the field, and you're like, "This is a very good Geno Smith." So I think he comes over. You have two good pieces on your offense. You have Garrett Wilson. You have Brees, two very good guys that Geno can thrive off of. And you mentioned attacking whoever at 16 in the draft. And that way, if you do land a Tyson, a Lemon, he's not going to fall that far. Carnell Tate, throwing out some names where
Yeah.
you can bring in a guy to learn from Garrett Wilson, and you have two very good pass catchers. That opens up for Brees Hall, that has seen stacked boxes since he's gotten to the league. So I honestly don't hate it. As much as Geno might not be the quarterback that's going to go out there and give you 40 touchdowns and 9 interceptions, he can win you some games. He's experienced, and he has played in some very good systems, especially that last stint in Seattle. He's played in some good systems. I think Geno can help this team win some games. And hey, the NFL is the NFL. Maybe they go out and they win some games they probably shouldn't win. And we're talking about 7, 8 wins. You never know until they take the field in September. But I personally like what the Jets did.
Yeah, and I 100% agree with you in terms of the win aspect. Look, if Glenn wants to keep his job, you're spot on. They've got to win 7 games at the very least, 6 to 7 games. I think if you could find not all 7-win seasons are created the same, if that makes sense. Like if the Jets are in games and they're just losing by 3 points, 6 points, like they're close games, they're tight contests, you can live with that, right? But if they're getting blown out like they were last year and they weren't even competitive, that's a whole other story. But I totally agree. I think your Geno Smith assessment spot on. Look, I'm as hard as the Jets are as anybody. And in terms of the fan base, like if there was a different tier of the fan base, I am probably near the top in terms of just the negativity I feel for this team. Like I still think there's a very good chance. I have not been this beaten down and battered as a Jet fan. Like even last year, I'll be honest, there was some hope around the potential of Justin Fields working out. New coach and Aaron Glenn. He said and did all the right things in the offseason. They go out there and win 3 games. The Rodgers era broke me. Last season broke me. I'm about as broke as they're going to come from a Jet fan perspective. But I have to say, people just like to use the lull Jets, and people like to just make fun of Geno Smith, especially after last season. And there's a lot of Jet fans that don't like Geno Smith, and a lot of it has to do with his first stint here. Here's what I'll say with Geno Smith. When he first came into the league, he was certainly a little immature. There was things that he did here. There was leadership concerns with him. But the guy is much more experienced now. The guy has learned. The guy has had success in the NFL. And that's where I totally agree with you. People just look at last season and just judge him just off of that. Like that was his only season in the NFL. Geno Smith, to me, as a backup, is like a lesser version of Jameis Winston. He's going to take chances. He's going to force feed Garrett Wilson. He's gonna have some moments. Like there's gonna be some moments where you're liking what you're seeing, and there's gonna be some moments where he has a bad turnover, he holds onto the football for too long, takes a bad sack, all that stuff. But that's a backup quarterback. Like that's where the Jets are. But can he run an NFL offense? Can he play at a competent level? Is this a guy that's thrown 30 touchdowns in a season before and over 4,000 yards? Yes. Did he win 10 games with Seattle? Yes. Did he make a playoffs with Seattle? Yes. Like I understand he left and they got Darnold and they won the Super Bowl and he left and he goes to Vegas and they get him Fernando Mendoza and people want to say, oh, he's going to leave the Jets and get him Arch Manning. Look, if that happens, I mean, so be it, I guess. But think about where the Jets are at quarterback. They just need competent quarterback play. He's an upgrade over Fields. And if he goes out there and gives you 20 touchdowns next season and 12 interceptions, 21 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, and in the 3,000-yard range, you sign up for that any day of the week if you're a Jet fan. We haven't gotten that in years, right? So I don't mind the move at all. I'm right there with you. And of the available options, again, he was the best of, if you want to say the worst. It was like you were shopping at the used car lot or shopping at the junkyard, however you want to phrase it. So I get it. He's thrown 32 interceptions over the last 2 years, but he also threw 71 touchdowns in 3 years with Seattle. He has thrown 90 touchdowns in the last 4 years. That's not bad, if you ask me. So that's where I stand with Geno. And can they be competent? Can they win 7 games? Because they've got to. If they can do that and put themselves in a situation, and look, they've got 3 first-round picks next year. They've got all the capital to move up and down the board. The Bills made the playoffs. They drafted Josh Allen. You can win games and still get your franchise quarterback a year later. And the Jets will have the capital to do that. So I still want to win games. Like, there's still Jet fans that are saying, oh, Geno, there's some portion of the fan base that says, oh, Geno's too good. We're going to win too many games. Like, what are you talking about? You're worried about winning too many games? Win football games. We haven't made the playoffs in 15 years. I'm begging for Geno Smith to give me 7 wins. I'd be thrilled if they make the playoffs. So that's where I'm at. Anyway, that's the Jets side of things. I will toss the floor over to you. Your thoughts on Dallas?
I liked it. I liked it a lot. I'm not going to say loved it. If they would have gotten the Kobe Dean deal done, I would have loved this free agency. And reading the reports of the Kobe Dean, I don't know what gut feeling he had to want to go to the Raiders, but good luck with that. And I know we just talked about how good the Raiders could be on the defensive side. Well, one team has Dak Prescott and 2 very good receivers, and the other team, we don't know what direction they're going to go in. So, according to sources, the deal for Dean from Dallas to the Raiders was the same exact, down to the T, down to the dollar amount, and he chose the Raiders, so good luck. But I'm not mad at it. I mean, again, I'm going to repeat this for a second time. You talked about a bad defense. If the Jets' defense was bad, Dallas's defense was, I don't even have a word to describe it. That defense was horrible. I had to watch Kenneth Walker play football on my TV in the living room, and it was painful. That was not a good defense. That was not a good secondary. Everything about that defense outside of the front four was terrible. And the front four didn't get fun and exciting until Quentin Williams came over. So for Dallas, I think they finally saw what needed to be done, and that was just defense. You got 3 very good players in the secondary. I like the Kobe Durant signing. I like the PJ Locke one, and I like the Jalen Thompson one. And respectfully, I didn't know much about Jalen Thompson. I'm just like, who is this guy they're talking about? They're eyeing. But after watching some tape on him and looking at some stats over the years, a very good guy. He's very good in terms of the run. He is very good in coming up to play inside the box. He's a very good tackler. He's not the type of guy who's going to pick off 8, 9, 10 balls or deflect a lot of passes. But for someone that can come up and be aggressive and be versatile and be hybrid, Jalen Thompson offers that, so I like it. And then, of course, Rashawn Gary. You look at what Dallas has took from Micah Parsons and have turned that into Rashawn Gary, Quentin Williams, Logan Wilson, although I know he's no longer with the team. That's an A in my book. And as much as I love Micah Parsons, and I'm forever thankful for what Micah Parsons has done for Dallas, Dallas has got significantly better taking one guy who's very good and getting a bunch of surrounding guys that's very good at their positions to help this team out. I mean, you talk about like Demario Davis as he's getting later on in his career, getting better. Dak Prescott's another one. I mean, as Dak is in these 30s, he has been lights out. He's playing some great ball, and it sucks to see that he's wasting. If you ask me, this is his prime years, but he's wasting his prime years, his wisdom years on very bad defenses where this team can go out and score 40 points any given Sunday, but the defense can't get a stop to save its life. So for Jerry Jones, I mean, I think he cooked this one. I think this is what all in actually looked like compared to a few years ago when he claimed all in. This is what it looked like, and you retained some guys. Brandon Aubrey's still on the roster. You bring Javonte Williams back. George Pickens is back. Yes, it's the franchise tag. Who knows how that's going to go, but it's the fact that Jerry has seen these guys that has helped the team win, and instead of trying to lowball them into terrible contracts or figuring, we can just go grab another guy in the draft. We can go grab another guy in free agency and bring in lesser talent. You retain guys that helped you win. So I like it. And honestly, Dallas right now, just looking at this first wave, looking at what Philly has lost and what the other 2 teams have done, Dallas should be the favorite going into the year to win the East because they have gotten that much better on the defensive side, and they're not done. Apparently, Max Crosby might still be in the works. We'll see how they want to go about that. But this is the first time in a very long time that I can look at this team in the offseason and look at Jerry Jones and actually be content with what they did and actually be willing to see what they look like in September. So shout out Jerry Jones for this offseason.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was a lot of good moves for Dallas. I think, obviously we talked about it a couple weeks ago, but kind of getting things started with the Javonte Williams signing, George Pickens. From Javonte Williams' perspective, it's, rewarding your own. He went out there, was not supposed to have the season that he had, and put up a really big season and got rewarded with a nice 3-year contract, right? He was ninth in the NFL in yards, finished eighth in touchdowns. He gave the Cowboys much needed running back juice for really the first time in a while for that Cowboys offense, where they haven't had that type of running back play. They've been searching for it. And a ton of credit, too, for Brian Schottenheimer, the rest of that coaching staff, for taking Javonte Williams and turning him into what he did last season, taking him and helping him reach another level in his game after what was, for a second-round pick, I would say a pretty disappointing tenure in Denver that didn't ultimately work out, but goes to Dallas, change of scenery. It was the prime example of where a change of scenery works into a new offense, good quarterback play, obviously a balanced attack, and did a lot of really good things. Defensively, I agree. I like what they've done. Going back to the deadline, adding Quinnen Williams was a move where you kind of, like you mentioned, kind of along the lines of taking Micah Parsons and then filling his absence with a bunch of good players, a bunch of very good players, where you don't have that one elite player, but you have a bunch of solid pieces to fill in these other gaps. Quinnen falls onto that piece. Adding Rashawn Gary, getting him for a 4th-round pick, I think that's really good value. And I also just like, too, when teams kind of get creative on how to acquire guys during free agency, where it's not just throw all this money at every player, but getting creative. Using a 4th-round pick, dealing a 4th-round pick. Like, that's a good Jerry Jones move. We have seen Jerry Jones use draft picks pretty poorly. What was it? The 4th-round pick for Jonathan Mingo?
Jonathan Mingo.
Yeah, like that is awful value. To think that he gave up a 4th-round pick for Mingo and then got a 4th-round pick for Rashawn Gary, ridiculous. But to his credit, that's good value for Rashawn Gary. This is a guy that's had back-to-back 7.5 sack seasons. He is he's a solid pass rusher, good, steady veteran, plays, I think he missed some time in 2022, but other than that, plays just about every single game. He's reliable. He's going to be on the field, former 1st-round pick. Rashawn Gary has been a really good piece for that Packers defense over the last couple of years, was certainly a big part of that Packers defense last season. Funny, he plays with Micah Parsons in Green Bay and now is a part of filling the void for Micah Parsons now in Dallas with that trade. I love the Jalen Thompson move. I actually was looking into Jalen Thompson for the Jets before they made, obviously, the Minka Fitzpatrick trade, because he is a really solid safety and a guy that is very consistent, has now played, 7 years in the league, entering his 8th season, good, steady veteran. Him and Budda Baker in the secondary in Arizona have kind of been quietly one of the better safety duos, if you will. And Jalen Thompson, I feel like, has always kind of been underrated, but he's extremely consistent. He's going to play every game, or play a good chunk of the games. He's going to be out there, and he's consistent in terms of just what he brings to the table. And from the Cowboys' perspective, I think it's a really nice veteran addition in that secondary. I also like some of the other supplemental moves. The Kobe Durant signing for only 1 year, $3 million, I think is solid value. To get PJ Locke on a 1-year deal, add some more safety depth, I also think is, pretty good value too. Continue to add in the secondary and area too. That was a weakness for the team. What I like is just the emphasis on defense. They got the 2 big offensive things done. We'll see what happens with Pickens and how those moves, or I should say discussions, develop from a contract standpoint. You get Javonte Williams done with. Now you focus on the defensive side of the football, which, like you mentioned, was awful last season. No other way to put it. And you go out and sign Jalen Thompson. You go out and trade for Rashawn Gary for just a 4th-round pick. You go out and add Kobe Durant, PJ Locke, 2 other pieces in the secondary. They brought back Sam Williams too. So I think it was right additions in the right spots, right upgrades. And I agree. Frankly, I don't love what the rest of the NFCs did. And I think that's what makes, if you're a Cowboys fan, more, I guess, good or happy with what they did. Was I to be honest, like, just looking at the Giants, I didn't think the Giants had a very good free agency. I know they brought in Isaiah Likely, but they signed Pat Ricard. They I don't really know fullback wise. I know they brought in Darnell Mooney. I know Tremaine Edmonds was a good signing, but I still think there was some things left to be desired from a Giants perspective. Brought back Evan Neal, which made no sense. One of the dumbest contracts I've ever seen. It's funny. He's getting $1.2 million. I believe 0 of it's guaranteed.
Yep.
I'd bet a lot of money is probably cut during camp.
But yeah, 100%.
I guess what was your favorite move for Dallas?
Probably Rashawn Gary. That one actually, it caught me off guard. And the fan base, I see the fan base complaining about it. You spent the 4th round pick on a guy that was going to get cut, but you get out of the bidding war. Jerry Jones is not great when it comes to offering contracts. So you get out of the bidding war, but definitely Gary, because it was so unexpected. And, like I told you off air, where a lot of my alerts comes from Underdog before I see it on Twitter, Instagram, whatever the case is. So I see that one in the works, and I'm just like, what is going on? And then when it, finally came true, like, this is a great move. This is, again, showing Jerry Jones is serious about winning this time. So I like it. I mean, the guy was second on the team in sacks last year with Green Bay, and we are in desperate need of impactful players to get to the quarterback, and he does that. So I like that one the most.
Yeah. And I agree with you on that, because there's some Jet fans, too, that were complaining about Geno and, you traded for him when he would have been released like 24 hours later. But it's also to make sure that he didn't go to any other team. There was some other suitors for Geno. And I agree, like, getting into a bidding war, give up the 4th round pick. Rashawn Gary's probably going to make a greater impact than that 4th round pick would ever make.
100%.
So I'm totally in that boat. I know some GMs are different. I mean, the Rams are F them picks all the way, with giving up their 1st round picks and hitting on picks in the later rounds. I'm totally in the boat of if you pair the value, and I would love to go back and look at all these moves, like moves for guys that were traded for 6th or 7th round picks or 4th or 5th round picks, the value of what that 4th or 5th round pick turned into as opposed to the value of the guy you got. Like, I can almost guarantee you Rashawn Gary's going to be better than if you took a defensive end with that 4th round pick, and especially better right now for this team right away. Let's say you take a defensive end with that 4th round pick. You can't expect much out of him for at least 2 seasons.
And I'm going to do some research on it. Right now, the brain is not fully functioning of just thinking back on some things, but I'm going to go look at Dallas's 4th round picks over the last 10 years and see how many of those actually panned out, how many of them are actually still on the roster, how many of them are actually still in the league, and that will be the telltale all for this, what they gave up for a very solid player in the NFL, for a guy that might not even be on the roster. Like, this season, they take that 4th round pick, might not even be on the roster after camp. So I'm right there with you. Like, in some instances, who cares about the picks? They don't always pan out.
Yep.
In this case, get someone that's been solid and that what will bring to the table instead of trying to develop a guy that might not work out. I like it. I'm not mad at it. And once again, I know I'm a broken record here, but we needed defensive help, and we brought defensive help. So at this point, it's just shut up and enjoy what we finally got, because we're used to this team not doing anything during the free agency period.
Yeah. A couple of years ago, it was the long snapper.
Yeah, we had a long snapper.
Yeah, and every GM's different. And I'm not saying that I'm one to just throw away draft picks, but I've always gravitated more towards the GMs that are willing to pair with some day 3 picks to get good value players, to get guys that help their team. Like, there is some GMs that just love the hog draft picks. And at the end of the day, they're all lottery tickets. You don't know. Now, sure, could Rashawn Gary come here and go to Dallas and stink? Yeah, that's obviously a possibility. That's a possibility with all these guys, right? The Jets gave up, I believe it was a 7th for Minka Fitzpatrick. Could he come here and stink? Sure. Could Geno come here and stink? Let me see. It was 7th. Could Geno stink? Sure. But I mean, you gave up a 7th round pick and you're paying him $3.3 million. Point being, I'm always on board. And that's actually something I like from a Jets perspective that Darren Muji has done. Like, he's willing to pair with late round picks or part with late round picks to get guys that are young and have control and cheap for a few years. So, I I'm a Nets fan. I saw them sit and pick 5 times in the first round too. So, there's you could work the board. Either you like the Rams, they don't pick in the first round and look at them. Right? They find guys in the later rounds, especially for franchises that are historically known for misses in the day 3. Like the Jets are historically suck on day 3. They don't find anybody on day 3. That's a big reason why I think they've been so bad. You look at good teams, they find diamonds in the rough in day 3. The Jets can never. It is unbelievable. They can never find a good player on day 3. Very rare do that, especially wide receivers, which is, I go down a long list of that. But yeah, I'm okay with pairing with the middle round picks. It's like, what are you going to do? Draft a 4th round edge rusher who's going to step in and dominate?
Saying
and then the complaint, it's not to cut you off, but the complaint would be, we're relying on a 4th round pass rusher from Missouri to carry us,
And that was exactly what I was about to say. Then you get the guy that you want, that you keep the pick, you go get a guy, he doesn't work out, and he's not that good. He's a rotational piece, and it's, we should have brought this over. If Green Bay is going to get rid of this, we could have did this. Like, at some point, you got to be happy with something. And again, you just got to be happy with the fact that they took this free agency period serious. So if Rashawn Gary gets in there and he sucks, guess what? So did Jonathan Mingo. We gave up the same thing. We won't know until September time.
100%. All right, so let's move on here to some of our free agency winners and losers so far. Of course, still some secondary moves that need to be made. There's still always that second wave. But I guess we'll start with winners. We'll kind of just go back and forth. Who do you got? We'll throw kind of one winner out there, go back and forth here. Got a couple losers as well. We'll go down the list.
My biggest winner is, we talked about one. The Raiders is one of them. But I'm going to pivot here. I'm going to go with the Titans. I like what the Titans did this offseason. Not only did they drop fire uniforms this week.
Yes. I like the logo.
Yeah, I
don't know what the hate around the logo is. I think it's good.
It's simple. It's nice and simple. Yeah. I like what the Titans did. So outside of the uniforms in the stadium next year, of course, just what they've added. I mean, you add Wan'Dale Robinson, who was very solid. I don't know if a lot of people watch Giants games, but there are some big ones that he had. Dallas, for instance. He went to Detroit, had a huge one against Detroit. This is a very good option at wide receiver that not only is very good down the field, but very effective in the screen game, being a smaller stature guy that can get behind the offensive lineman. I like Robinson. Of course, Jermaine Johnson was another one. John Franklin Myers, they signed. Alontae Taylor, they signed. Like, this team last year showed promise later on with Cam Ward as he started to kind of understand the game more and the speed of the game more. So I think Robert Saleh, who now gets another opportunity, and Brian Dable, both of those two guys that are kind of on like a redemption tour, bring some pieces over with a second-year quarterback that showed promise and can show that he can be very good. This team can be very good, and they built around him. I think the Titans probably might be my favorite out of the league in terms of just moves that they made.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I had the Titans on my list as well, and it's kind of funny because in the New York market, there's been a lot of talk of, Brian Dable and Robert Saleh are just getting all the failed Jets and Giants, but I don't really agree with that notion. Like, Jermaine Johnson's a very good football player. Wan'Dale Robinson's a very good football player. They brought back JFM, who was awesome with the Jets. Should have never traded him. Cordell Flott, a piece in the secondary. Solomon Thomas, depth interior piece on the defensive line that's worked with Saleh. They have upgraded the roster big time. JFM is awesome. He could play inside, could play outside. He's a scheme fit in that solid defense. Saleh's going to be calling the plays. Jermaine Johnson and JFM played the best football of their career under Robert Saleh, and you expect them to continue that. Cordell Flott, I worked with Dable and with the Giants. This is a guy who the Giants were actually interested in bringing back. Tennessee gave him a bit more, and he goes now, obviously, to the Titans. I don't like the Tony Adams move. I think Tony Adams is awful. But in terms of offense, Wan'Dale Robinson, to me, walks into that room as the best wide receiver.
100%.
Especially looking off of last season. And say what you want about, Brian Dable and the Giants, but Wan'Dale Robinson had some success under Brian Dable. And this season, part of his time when Brian Dable was the coach, he went off in that Dallas game. had some success there. Dable knows how to use him. He's got the connection with him. I think Dable as an offensive coordinator is going to be very good for Cam Ward. So I totally agree. I had Titans as one of my winners. I think they had a really good free agency. They got a much needed help at wide receiver. They got Cam Ward a weapon. They got massively improved on defense from JFM to Jermaine Johnson. You add Cordell Flott, some good moves defensively. I think they did a lot of really good things. They're much improved over there. And I actually think Saleh, there's a chance he has some success in Tennessee. I could see it happening. And I really like Dable's the OC. And I think some of the pieces they picked up offensively, specifically Wan'Dale Robinson, are going to fit in perfectly with Cam Ward. So I agree with Tennessee. I'm going to throw another team out there. They're going to stay in the South, but switch over to the NFC. I'm going to throw the Panthers in the mix. I think the Panthers did two really good moves that I really, really liked. And to me, when you look at the Panthers, I know you can kind of break down the roster and look at the offense and, outside of Tet McMillan, you could use some help at wide receiver. And I still think they can approach that in the draft. But from a defensive standpoint, they got a lot better this past week. They added Jalen Phillips on a 4-year, $120 million deal. And they also added Devin Lloyd, who was in a lot of rankings, the top linebacker on the open market, 3-year, $45 million deal at $25 million fully guaranteed. They got massive upgrades on that defense. And I look at just going back to that Rams game, going back to some of the games this season with the Panthers, their defense at times had their fair share of struggles. Their defense at times had their fair share of issues. To add to that defense, add Devin Lloyd, add Jalen Phillips, who, when he's healthy, very good pass rusher. I really like those two moves. I think they got a lot better. You add that to already having J.C. Horn as your number one corner in the secondary. Obviously, Derek Brown in the interior is a solid piece for that team. So defensively, the Panthers are building something there. I really believe that. I think they did a lot of really good things. Two really good moves, in my opinion, with Jalen Phillips and Devin Lloyd.
Yeah, I like the Panthers too. This defense was already good. Like, this defense got
solid.
scary.
Yeah.
I like it. Offensively, I think they could have needed a little more, but then again, keep saying it. That second wave you got in the draft, who knows how things might pan out. But Bryce Young, on the bright side, as much as you look at that team, and from the offensive side, you're just like, dang, like with the lack of what we had, we were able to make the playoffs, and losing Rico Dowdle, which is a huge piece of that offense, that's going to hurt.
Yeah.
But Bryce Young showing with what they had, being able to really come together throughout last season. I think if you're a Panthers fan and they make some more moves, you are even more confident, higher expectations this season than last. I like what the Panthers did.
Yeah, I agree. And losing Dowdle is a tough blow, no doubt about it. And they could still use some improvements at wide receiver. Wide receiver market's kind of dried up, to be honest.
It's bad.
I think a lot of teams at this point that didn't sign a wide receiver, you're looking at the draft at this point for wide receiver help. I think the only known one that didn't sign was Juwan Jennings.
Yeah.
He's really the only one near the top of the list. I mean, if you want, I guess throw Deebo Samuel in there, but he's not the same player. But other than that, I mean, Diggs has got his issues. But Dobbs, Wan'Dale Robinson, I guess Keenan Allen, Christian Kirk, Tyreek Hill, they're still all out there. D-Hop, but you're really kind of DeAndre Hopkins is not going to move the needle at all at this point in his career.
Whew.
Anyway, what next team?
I'm gonna go with the loser because we're getting kind of tight on time here. I'm gonna go with one
Sounds
loser.
good.
The Colts. I don't like what the Colts did this offseason. First of all, you paid Daniel Jones $44 million off of 2 good games. He's coming off an Achilles, injury.
And he started to struggle before the Achilles. People forget that.
Yes.
People act like the Achilles injury. It's funny. Not to cut you off, and I know we are running short on time here, but it's almost like the Jason Tatum against the Knicks. People act like Jason Tatum tearing his Achilles is when the Knicks started to come back in the series. They were up in the series and they were up 9 when he tore his Achilles. People act like the Colts season fell apart when Daniel Jones tore his Achilles. No, it started to fall apart about 3 weeks prior. They started losing games. He started to struggle. Then he tore his Achilles, and then the bottom really fell out because they were rolling 80-year-old Phillip Rivers out there. But yeah, I think that's people forget about that. People just think, oh, he tore his Achilles, he'll be back. No, that magic wore out, and then the Achilles happened.
Yeah, so thank you for bringing that up. I've told 4 different people that conversation, that point of it, and they don't see it that way. They think he tore the Achilles and the season went down Drake. No, they were starting very bad. Look back at that Pittsburgh game. Like, they were awful for quite some time there with, Daniel Jones, and the magic ran out. That's the perfect way to put it. But not only the contract with that, Alec Pierce getting $28.5 million was
terrible.
Awful. This is a guy, and I don't want to, badmouth the guy. Alec Pierce is a good wide receiver, but you get rid of Michael Pittman for a guy, respectfully, in my opinion, Alec Pierce, who only runs straight and runs post. That's all he does. I mean, the guy only had 2 games over 100 yards. He only had 3 games with 5 or more receptions. He's not a number one. He is your big play down the field guy when you need chunk plays, but he's not running the route tree. He's not a, 9, 10 reception kind of guy. I don't like the Alec Pierce move whatsoever. And if I'm George Pickens, boy, I'm talking to my agent and I'm looking at Jerry Jones and I'm just like, did you see what the guy at Indy just got?
Yeah.
Look at me and look at him out of respect. So I don't like what the coach did. I think they are probably the biggest losers, in my opinion, for teams that actually made moves. But they had a bad one.
I agree. NFL history with the Alec Pierce contract of $29 million. It's just, or AAV of what was it, 28.5, 29?
All about the same. It's
all about the same.
It's all about the same.
Because it's what, 114 over 4? Ridiculous either way. And I agree with you in terms of Alec Pierce he's a solid wide receiver, but he's not worth that money. He's not worth that value. The guy has had 1 season over 1,000 yards. 1 season. And he's got Daniel Jones throwing him passes. Let's pump the brakes on Alec Pierce is going to go on this tear over the next 4 years, right? I've heard a lot of Colts fans say, oh, well, they're paying for what he's going to be. Are we sure he's going to be this elite wide receiver with the quarterback play that they've got? I mean, there's a good chance Shane Steichen and that coaching staff's out after this year. There's a good chance the bottom falls out underneath the Colts this year. There's no guarantee that they're any good. Just because they started 8-2 and people claim, oh, Daniel Jones tore his Achilles and the season fell apart. Meanwhile, they had that bad loss in Pittsburgh. He didn't look good against Atlanta. They had the loss to Kansas City. They had the loss to Houston. And then I believe did he tear his Achilles in the Houston game? I forget. I know he played terrible against Kansas City.
I know he didn't play good.
Yeah. It might have been the Houston game. I forget. Either way, they lost like 3 of 4 going into the Achilles. They were 8-1. They were 8-2, and I think he tore his Achilles and they were 8-4. Because they started 7-1. Either way. Daniel Jones, though, is turning into the modern day Kirk Cousins. He is just stealing money from teams.
Finessing the league.
Yep. He stole 40 million. And the crazy part is, look, Kirk Cousins has made more money in his NFL career than he should have. But Kirk Cousins at his best was a good quarterback. Yeah. Daniel Jones is never going to be. He can't shine Kirk Cousins' shoes when it comes to play on the field. But he stole all that money from the Giants. He's stealing money from the Colts. It's highway robbery. And the Colts also signed Michael Clemens, who is one of the worst football players I've ever seen in my entire life from the Jets. He's awful. The guy is awful. He's not good at anything. So that's highway robbery on their part too. I think the Colts just got ripped up.
Yeah.
Like, ripped off. They signed Pierce to that insane contract, which is ridiculous. They traded Michael Pittman. You can make the argument Pittman and Pierce are not that far off. You trade Pittman. You bring back Daniel Jones. You sign Michael Clemens. You give Pierce a bag. I think it was awful.
Yeah.
I agree. My other team, I had 2 losers. Colts were one of them. The other one I had is the Broncos. They have literally not made a single signing. Now, I should preface this and say they have brought guys back, but they haven't brought anybody else from the outside. They have re-signed Sam Ehlinger. They re-signed J.K. Dobbins, Jaleel McLaughlin, Lil Jordan Humphrey, Adam Trautman, Alex Singleton. Alex Singleton was a good move to re-sign him. He was a good linebacker on the open market, a very good piece for that defense. So that's fine. Adam Prentice, their fullback, Justin Strand. Those are all their moves. They've only re-signed guys. They have not made a single signing. And it is Sunday, March 15th. Free agency has now been open for essentially a week. And I also should add that they lost JFM. So to me, I look at the Broncos. They haven't gained anything. They only lost talent on defense in JFM. And look, that defense should be able to recover. But JFM was a really good piece for them. And he's had a really good last couple of years that got himself that bag in Tennessee back with Robert Saleh. And look, this Broncos team is talented. It's not like this is the Raiders or the Jets doing nothing where they desperately need talent. But this is still a team that fell one game short. This is still a team that lost JFM, that could use some upgrades. And I know there's a lot of young pieces, but I don't know. You're trying to get over the top in a Super Bowl, especially when you look around the AFC and what some of these other teams have done. Like, look, the Chiefs got better. I know they lost Trent McDuffie and they've lost some pieces, but they also brought in Kenneth Walker. They desperately needed running back help. They brought him in. The Bills got better with DJ Moore. Like, guys that are teams that are around the league or around the AFC, they got better. Ravens added Trey Hendrickson. The Raiders aren't a threat, but defensively they got better. Point being, Denver hasn't done anything. They have not signed one player. They've only done re-signings, and they let JFM walk. So I don't like what they've done. They've done nothing. So I can't even say I don't like what they've done because they haven't done anything.
No, JFM, PJ Locke, Dre Greenlaw is another one that left.
Dre Greenlaw. Yeah.
Jerry Jones masterclass. And I know this is not Jerry Jones, but it's just this season went like this. We're just going to run it back. We like our guys. Yeah. So they like their guys. They brought them back, but I can't say this, and it's not a crazy thing to say, but Denver will not be back in the AFC Championship next year. Denver will not even be in the division round next year. That's a wild card lost team. I don't believe in them. I didn't believe in them last year with the lack of moves. And again, this is still early. Moves can be made. We'll see what they do around the draft time. But at this current moment, March 15th, what the Broncos did, I don't believe in this team to be good enough to even get past the wild card. So super, super early hot take. But I'm right there with you as a big loser for Denver.
Yeah. No, I agree. And look, this is not a team that dominated by any stretch last season either. I mean, they were in a close battle with the Raiders. They barely won some of those games. So it's not like they were dominant and then they were blowing teams out and now they're lost in pieces. But defensively too, like that's the concerning part. That was the strength of their team, and they've lost the most on that side of the football. Now you want to play devil's advocate and say, oh, what they've got, Vance Joseph, and he turned that unit around, so they'll be fine. Trust him. But I don't know. I mean, I don't know. For a team that made the AFC title game and fell one game short, and you look at the teams around them making some moves, the Bills got better. The Chiefs offensively got better. They haven't done anything. So, anyway, any closing thoughts?
That is all. Thank you guys for getting to episode 100 with us. We'll be back next week, but thank you for the support as usual, and have more news for you next week.
Yes, thank you for watching as always. Big episode 100 in the books. Here's to the next 100. I guess, I don't know, when will the 200th episode drop? I don't know. That'll be a while from now. It's got to be 100, whatever 100 weeks is. But this was perfect timing. 100th episode during NFL free agency. So appreciate you all as always. Back next week, and thanks for watching.